don't think I've ever been this nervous in my entire life. Whew. I just want to start off by saying how thrilled I am to be up here in front of all of you lovely ladies. And what an honor it is to be able to speak amongst all of our speakers as well and our worship team. It's just been absolutely tremendous. I normally am not up here. I am either in that chair or in the back. And so it was quite odd when God put on my heart a few months ago that he wanted me to stand right here, right now. Wow. Anyways, I do want to just start off by empowering you guys. I would not be standing here today if I hadn't taken that step of faith when God nudged me in this direction. And for a while, I get these nudges from time to time, and I'll hang my foot over the boat, and I'm just like, yes, God, that's just enough. But he told me to take that step off the ledge, and I'm really glad that I did it. And I just want to encourage you guys that if God is asking you or nudging you to take a step of faith, that you pray about it. You ask one of us to pray with you about it, and I just want to let you know he equips you, and he's with you every step of the way. Obviously, my heart is not pounding out of my chest right now, so he's with me. So I just want to be fully transparent with you guys. What I'm about to share with you is very raw. I'm still kind of in the grieving stages of it. I'm putting pieces back together, but it's been years and years of just a lot that I've underwent. And how I cope with it is with a little bit of humor. And that's just some of the way I deal with it therapeutically, and it's kind of a coping mechanism. And I just want to express to you guys that by no means do I think that it's a laughing matter what I might share with you. By no means do I think that it's not as serious, because I know some of you might be suffering with the same circumstance or have suffered with the same circumstance before. So I just want to get that out there. Oh, all right. So really quick, while I have you, and we're going to get back to this towards the end of my message, but I really want you to just hold up your hands like this. I want you to take a look at your fingertips. I want you to take a look at the curvature of your palms and the lines in your hands. God made us all unique. We each have our own story to tell, our own path, and our own fingerprint. No one else is the same as you do. You're the only one You're the only one of you on the planet. Relish that as we move forward. So when Crystal had told me that our topic this year was going to be #NoFilter, I was like, oh, that's great. I can't wait to sit in the audience and just soak it all in and absorb it. And then when God was like, hey, Jess, I really want you to speak, I was like, what? Okay. And he was just like, and you know why, right? And I'm like, no, I don't know why. And he was like, yeah, because you've dealt with filters your entire life. I was like, what? So it's been a lot of months of reflecting on filters that I've dealt with in my life, filters that have affected me, that people have put on their own life, filters I've placed on my life, filters that I've placed on other people, and then most importantly, filters that I've put on God. So my freshman year of college, I played fast pitch softball. And at the beginning of our year, our coach all gave us a quote, and it was really cute. She put it in a balloon, and you had to pop the balloon to get your quote. And as everybody popped their balloon and got their quote, here I was like anxiously waiting. One, because I don't like popping balloons. And they were popping all around me. But two, I was like, oh man, I wonder what my quote's gonna get. And I got this one. You may not realize it when it happens, but a kick in the teeth may be the best thing in the world for you. Excuse me? Some people got some like Paula Young quotes and some Muhammad Ali quotes. This quote is actually from Walt Disney. And I was like, no way did Walt Disney quote this. That's absolutely absurd. So I Googled it. And the full quote is, all the adversity, all my troubles and obstacles have strengthened me. You may not realize it when it happened, but a kick in the teeth may be the best thing for you. And that is a quote that I live by. And it's, when I tell people that, they're caught off guard. They're like, excuse me? And I'm like, yeah, it really is. Because sometimes we have we endure a lot of suffering to realize exactly what type of blessings we have. And in that case, that's my case. So as I dive into the meat of my discussion, I want to give a little bit of backstory about myself. I was born in California, and then when I was about 7 years old, I moved up to Washington. And Washington, woo. We've been doing that a lot lately. I have 2 brothers, and my mom and dad, fortunate enough, my mom and dad are still married, and I'm extremely blessed, but they did undergo a lot of adversity through my life. So my first form of filters actually started as I was a child with my parents. So I grew up in a very loving household, a very energetic household, but what I didn't realize is that my mom and dad were hiding a lot from us kids, and I didn't realize it until I was an adult and my parents shared it with me. So growing up, I had filters on my mom and dad's finances. I had seen my mom and dad through a filter of their marriage. I've seen my mom and dad through the filters that they've placed on themselves and their personalities and characteristic traits. And I've seen filters on what exactly we were approaching as a child, I guess the living circumstances that I was in. And I didn't realize it until God really opened my eyes to it just a few months ago. So like I said, I moved to Washington State when I was 7 years old. And at that time, not knowing it, my mom and dad actually filed for bankruptcy. My mom and dad had struggled with infidelity. And my mom and dad had struggled with an addiction in our family. And I had no clue. But that's just what happens, is we are indirectly affected by some of these filters that we place on our lives. And we don't know that they're indirectly affecting the ones that are around us. So, I know, it's really sad, right? Okay. So, I am a scrappy person. Obviously, you see, I am a short-statured individual. I am a middle child. I have an older brother and a younger brother. And growing up, I had nothing in common with my brothers. So, there was a lot to prove. I had to prove myself as a girl. I had to prove myself as a daughter. I proved myself as a sister. And I just kind of had to scrap for myself. At a young age, I was actually diagnosed with dyslexia, and so I had to prove that. And it was a lot of weight for a kid to carry, to constantly feel like I had to be this perfect human, to constantly feel like I needed to please somebody because I felt like a referee in my family. I felt like that I needed to be that mediator, something that could bring joy in the light of darkness. And that was hard. Shortly after we moved to Washington State, I was graced with the chance to start going to church with my aunts and uncles, and I grew up in a non-Christian household, and my mom started going to church with my aunts and uncles as well. And when I was 11 years old, on the same day as my mom, I gave my life to Christ. And it was such a beautiful moment. But here I was at 11 years old, and I just knew all of this talk. God was going to have me, and he was going to hold me, and he was going to take care of me, and I didn't have to prove myself. And I gave myself to Christ, and I stood there, and I was like, am I changed? I looked at myself in the mirror. Am I different? And I wasn't. And I still battled with that reality. But of course, I couldn't let anybody know because that would cause a problem. And then how am I supposed to be this awesome human? How am I supposed to be this scrapper who can do anything and everything? And so I had a really hard time navigating through it. Here I was, a newfound Christian, and I just kind of waltzed through it in a lukewarm manner, going to church, attending some of the youth group meetings, just thinking to myself, I'm saved, but nothing's changed. and I had no direction as to how I could seek God further. I didn't have anybody. My mom was a new Christian herself, and it was a struggle to find somebody to guide us and to kind of help us navigate through this newfound life of Christianity. And so it was a difficult time being a preteen, moving into my teen years. And as you've heard all of these ladies share today, that there's been struggles as a child and moving into adulthood and pressure, and I struggled with that too. When I was in high school, I decided that I was going to be multiple people, because multiple people were liked by multiple people. I didn't think that people were going to like me for myself. I didn't have a sense of identity to stand in. And so I developed multiple identities. Sorry, let's take a deep breath. I became that girl, right? We all know that girl. There's that smart girl, that pretty girl, that athletic girl. There's that dumb girl, that just a friend girl, that friend girl, that girlfriend girl. And I became all of those girls, and I was those girls at different moments in the day. I couldn't all be that same person at the same time. And I found it to where I was making up stories to be that girl, and I was doing things that made me extremely uncomfortable to be that girl, and things that I just didn't even think that I would be doing to be that girl, just so that I could fit in, just so I could be this mold of what everybody identified as somebody that they liked and appreciated and affirmed. And I was drowning. It's so funny because my older brother could see right through it, but I was immediately defensive as soon as he brought it up. Like, heck no, who are you to tell me that I'm not myself? But really, I wasn't being myself. And that's when I decided, since I was drowning, I was going to be one more girl. I was going to be the party girl. You know, growing up, you watch all of these movies, these teeny bopper movies where you go to high school parties and it's great, and you know, the girls all have fun and there's music. And I thought, that's what I want. They seem like they're so happy. So I became the party girl. And I lost myself in alcohol. I lost myself in lies. I lost myself in the fun and the music. And it wasn't until the second time I was sexually assaulted that I decided I wasn't going to be that girl anymore. I had friends that encouraged me to continuously come out, and I said no. I couldn't put myself through that any longer. And that's when I met my husband. It's funny that I say that because as we move into this conversation, my husband's caused me a lot of grief and a lot of pain, but he's also been that hand that's reached out and picked me up at my darkest times. And so I met my husband when I was 16 years old. At the time, he was youth group boy, and party girl and youth group boy did not mix very well. I didn't want to be judged by him, and so we kept our healthy distance. But by the time I was 17 and I was in my senior year of high school, I met my husband, and we were going to be just friends because I was raised in the day of age of girl power, right? I was independent, girl power. No boy can hold me down. And I told him that. I said, no, I don't really feel like dating because I'm going to go to college soon, and dating is just not for the college life, Ty. And he just followed me like a little puppy. I'll go wherever you go. And funny enough, it was actually the spring of my freshman year of college that I was actually sitting in a Sunday service with my husband and his family at their church, and they had a guest speaker at the time, and for the life of me, I can't even remember her name, but I just remember this moment, that right as she was speaking and she was talking about identity in Christ, God reached out and he said, I want you. I don't want that girl. I want you. And I was taken back, and for the first time, my husband saw me cry, and he was like, what's happening? Backstory, I'm not a big crier, so when I do cry, it is like a big deal. And that's when I realized that I needed to accept Christ one more time. Like, he just keeps coming back. So I want to share a verse with you guys, really quick. And the faithful love of the Lord never ends. His mercies begin afresh every morning. I say to myself, the Lord is my inheritance, therefore I will hope in him. That's what I clung to at that moment. I was no longer that girl. I was a Jesus girl. I had to first lose myself to find myself in Christ. And so moving forward, a couple years down the road, I get married and I have my first child. And in the spring of 2013, I get an awkward phone call as I'm outside a grocery store trying to get stuff for work. And it is a gal who tells me that she's been having a relationship with my husband. And she just found out about me. And she thought that I had run away, as what my husband told her. And I was devastated. Here was this figure that reached for me, and he pulled me out of my deepest, darkest place. And he was causing me so much pain. I want to say this mental illness is no joke, and my husband does struggle with a mental illness. And so we've gone through many of these periods. I found out that it wasn't just this one gal, but it was multiple gals in multiple areas, because at the time my husband traveled for work, and so I moved out. My daughter was 9 months old. I didn't know what to do. I moved in with my best friends at the time. At the time, our best friends were actually best friends. They've been our friends for a really long time, since we were really young. And I moved in with them, and I didn't know what to do, and so I'm sobbing, and I'm praying to God, what do I do? What do I do? And he just told me to stay. Stay. Just one word. And so I did. I gave my husband another shot, and we tried this. And we were doing really good. We were going through counseling, and my husband had recommitted himself to me, and he admitted that he had struggled with a lot of depression and insecurity. And a couple months into counseling and kind of cohabitating with each other, I ended up getting pregnant. And I had already had my 9-month-old daughter at this point. She was a year old. And I lost all of my friends because I got pregnant. They, one, didn't think that I should have been with my husband, period, the end. And two, the fact that I had gotten pregnant meant that I was going to stay. And they weren't going to be friends with that person. It's funny because Joyce Myers actually has an entire special on seasonal friends. And I can say that right now that I love those friends. I still pray for them every day. And people can cause you heartache, and they can cut you pretty deep, but at the end of the day, they're broken humans just like we are. You'll hear a quote from me here in a little bit by C.S. Lewis about being inexcusable actions need to be forgiven. But those were my seasonal friends. They weren't my long-term friends. 31 days after my friends said that they didn't want to be around me anymore, I miscarried that baby. 2013 was a rough year for me. The icing on the cake, right? I was alone with no friends. Thankfully, I had my family. After miscarrying this baby, I thought it was my fault, just like when I was sexually assaulted. I thought it was my fault. What was I doing wrong? What am I doing right? And so I struggled. And I laid in that valley and I reached out for God each and every day. In November of 2013, my husband shipped off for basic training because in the period of these couple of months, he had been praying and he really felt God pressing him to join the military. And so I prayed about it too, and I actually had peace in regards to that decision. And so in November of 2013, he shipped off for basic training, and in December of 2013, I found out I was pregnant again. And she is my rainbow baby. I thought everything was going to be great. Tyler had this great connection with God, and then finally, after I found out that I was pregnant, I was clinging on to Reagan in this pregnancy, and I was just hoping, God, don't let this one go because it is keeping me going. Tyler being gone in basic training was keeping me going because I still had a daughter to care for and a daughter in my belly that I needed to care for, and that was keeping me going. And my family was there, and they were supporting me, and they were loving me all through this time period. And then God goes, bam, you're moving to England. What? England? That many miles away from the only people that want to talk to me right now? Like, what? Yeah. And so I trusted and I obeyed. All right, God, we're going to England. So we moved to England. And we established a good church and some friends. And I just want to say to you guys that all during my time and my struggle, I shamed my husband daily for what he had done to me. I need to take ownership in what I've contributed to some of the suffering that's happened in my relationship, and that is one of them. After I found out my husband had his first affairs, I took God off the throne and I put myself there. Tyler had to please me because I was unhappy and he wronged me. And in November of 2015, he went on a TDY and he came home and he didn't want to talk to me. And I didn't know why. So here I was again, reaching for God after I've placed him in his little box like a genie in a lamp. God, why is this happening to me? Why is he not talking to me? What did I do wrong? And God just said, stay and pray. So Romans 12:12 says, now for the life of me, I'm actually going off whim right here, says, be joyful in hope, patient in tribulation or trials, and constant in prayer. So I clung to that verse when I was going through my 2015 trial. And I went to counseling constantly, and I was working on me, and I was trying to bring Tyler into counseling, but he had already made up his mind that he didn't want anything to do with me any longer. And at this point, I had a 9-month-old daughter and a 2.5-year-old daughter, and I didn't know what to do. I was thousands of miles away from home, and I'd followed him all this way, and yet again, I'm standing here and I'm shaming him. And in December of 2015, I found out it was because we had another affair. So I struggled. What was it about me that wasn't pleasing to him? What was it about me that made him go to other people? Was I really that horrible? And it was actually in the moment that I found out, I was actually at a restaurant with a lot of friends, and he called me up because I had found out a couple of hours later, and I said, no, I'm going to go and just try and get my head straight with my friends. And he called me, and he was sobbing, and I just said, do you want to make this work? And he was like, yes, of course, I want to make this work. I want to make this work. I'm so sorry. I've already prayed to God and asked him for forgiveness, and I'm just calling to ask you for your forgiveness. I said, okay, then let's do this. And so for the second time, I stayed. I trusted and I obeyed what God had said at that moment to me. And so moving forward, instead of me being on the throne, I thought at that moment I was in such a dark place, and through the times of counseling and not really knowing exactly how to navigate through this, and really not turning to God, but trying to turn to other people and see how I should have handled this situation in other people's eyes, I put my husband on the throne, and I took God right off again, and here I was at the bottom. And I glorified my husband. He had really high expectations, and he could do no wrong at this point because he had asked for forgiveness, and we were going to move forward from this. So, in December of 2016, we found out that we were going to be coming here to Alaska. And in July of 2017, we moved to Alaska. Everything was great. The kids were getting along, Tyler and I were getting along, but there was still something wrong. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And I think about it now, and really what it was because I placed my husband on God's throne. You know, a good friend of mine always says that there's no vacancy in the Holy Trinity. It's not Tyler's spot to be. And in January of 2018, it happened again. My husband got back from a TDY, and he acted exactly as he did in 2015, and I knew. And I was going to become a little Sherlock Holmes, and I was going to get to the bottom of it, and I wasn't going to do this again. No, sirree, Bob, was I going to do this again. You'd hurt me way too many times, and I wasn't going to stay, and I took God out of his genie bottle, and I said, God, what do I do? And God said, stay. Excuse me? Stay? Do you not understand what I've gone through? Stay? And he said to me, this marriage isn't going to end by your words or your hand. This marriage will end by his, if it's going to end. And I took faith in that, and I moved forward, and I did it in a more cautious manner this time. But what I did this time was I put God on his throne. And in February of 2018, I re-accepted God into my life, and I was no longer going to be that lukewarm Christian that just pulled God out of his genie bottle anytime I needed to. I was going to walk step in step with God, because that is what I had been missing every single time that I had felt this way. I felt this emptiness. And so for months, I worked on me, and I worked on my relationship with God, and I fell in love with God. And my husband fell back in love with me and fell in love with God, because God was rightfully where he belonged. So C.S. Lewis says, to be a Christian means to forgive the inexcusable in others because God has forgiven the inexcusable in you. No one sin is greater than the other. And grace is definitely not a license to sin. So I want to give you a couple of points on just how I coped through this. And like I said, it's 2019, guys. This is still really fresh. So if this is something that you might be struggling with, and it might not even be with your marriage, but it just might be with something that you are clinging on to, that you just haven't let go, that you've said, God, take this away from me, and you've held it up here like this. Aren't you going to take this? Oh, sorry. That's what I did. Surrender. Not letting go will keep you from moving forward. Trust and obey. Trusting everything. I surrendered to God and obeying his commands. And I say that so it's almost like a sour taste in your mouth. You're like, that's not what I want to do, but I know that's what I need to do, and that's what he's calling me to do. One of the quotes that got me through this last trial was, "We have not been given a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and self-control." You have no control over the people around you. You have no control over that. But what you do have control over is yourself. And you've not been given a spirit of fear, but of love and strength. And even in weakness, you find strength. In your vulnerability, you find strength. Because that means that you fully admitted you can't do this on your own, that you need God. And he's the strongest. This is something that I live by, the next right step. After my incident in 2018, my counselor told me that not to think about 3 or 5 or 7 or 10 days down the road or a month down the road or a year down the road, but just think about your next right step. I'm going to give my girls a hug. That's the next right step. I'm going to actually talk to my husband today. That's the next right step. And I did that step by step by step. And that's all it takes. That moves into my next one. Striding with God instead of striving for God. Haven't you ever noticed that in the Bible, Jesus is never running? I'm not going to run on stage because I could fall. But he's never running, so I'm going to power walk. He's always walking, striding, relating. So we're not meant to rush from one place to the next, to the next, to the next, even though society tells us that's what we need to do, even though our culture says that that's what we need to do. God calls us to stride with him, not strive for him, because he'll come to you like that. It isn't a race. God has us all paced with him. We're all different. It looks different. It feels different. The last thing that I did to help to get through this, and I'm still doing it, is own it. I own my mistakes, my control issues. I've owned taking God off his throne and putting him in his lamp. I've owned the suffering that I've gone through, because that never changes. It stays with you, but the beauty about it is it can be used in situations like this, where I can grace you guys and let you know that our God is a good God. That even through all the pain and the suffering that I've gone through, and who knows, I might go through it again, that our God is a good God. All right, so we've talked about filters that have affected me as I was growing up, filters that I've placed on myself, and the struggle filter, and how I've taken God out of his throne from time to time. How do we deal with those real life filters? How is that actually seen? After establishing God belongs on his throne and what that looks like, how are we to maintain it? What are the forces that keep us from living a rich life? Real filters we strain our lives and God through. So I want to go ahead and do a visual for you guys really quick. Oh, this is a fun table. Cool. Picked a wrong day to wear a skirt. Just kidding, I love this skirt. That's why I wear it today. All right. I'm gonna put some ping pong balls in here, right? And if I were to hold this up to my face, what would you see? Ping pong balls. Some are little soccer balls or basketballs. That's all Walmart had to offer. And so picture this as you, right? Here's God. He's our living water. We've placed him on his throne. We've accepted him. He's in our heart. But then what's this up here? I want to go over it. This is our influence. Society, culture, social media. What we want them to see versus what's really happening, and the authenticity of our own life and the transparency that we need to live by. Because there is no healing in faking it. Control. This was a big one for me. I'm going to put a control filter on here because no way am I going to lose control. Am I going to fear it? This is complacency. Emotion. What makes us sad? What makes us angry? Is it right? Is it wrong? What gives us pleasure? Remember, grace is not a license to sin. It's okay because I have salvation, so I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to ask for forgiveness later because it's okay, and I'll see God through this filter right here, and then I will go ahead and put this filter on me so people see me in a different way. Then there's fear. We don't want to be vulnerable. I get it. I don't want to be vulnerable. I spent my entire life having to prove something, striving for excellence. And lastly is ambition. Ambition is always a tough one because when I think about it, I was just like, wow, my dreams and my goals, that shouldn't be something terrible. Except if we are filtering it through money and not purpose. It's okay, God, because I'm going to make a lot of money. But I hear you calling me to do this instead. I'm not going to hear you because I have this filter. Oh, okay, cool. God said that. All right, yeah, we're going to go and do it. Is it asking God for it now or telling about it later? Is it what he's asking of you? Or is it what you were wanting for yourself? And the beautiful thing about God is, right? He is our living water. When we decide to put God first, when we decide to pray instead of choose, when we decide to slow down instead of move fast, it's going to explode. We're no longer hiding behind these filters. God made us in his image, right? Now what do you see? You see me. And the best part is when we fill ourselves with God, when we use him instead of filters, those only stay on the surface. They can't get deep down to us. The enemy can't attack us or distract us or try and prompt us with something that he says might be better for us. At first, the struggle is letting God in. And then the struggle becomes letting God out. Just like in the King of the World song, we put him in this box. And then we want to fetch him when we need him. We need him all the time. I can't get up in the morning without needing him. Like, heaven forbid. I am sleep deprived, y'all. He can't be contained. He is everywhere. We so often choose to put him inside these boxes expecting different results. And I just want to say this. You guys are all beautiful. God made you all to be special and unique in your own ways, and you aren't meant to fit in anybody's filter. You aren't meant to be this person or this person, even though you've shared similar experiences. You don't live life like they live life, because we all have the same GPS system as Christians, but we are all given different paths. Not one person has the same path. It's not going to look the same. You're not going to look the same. And we need to love that and embrace it. I love the book. Oh my gosh, of course I'm standing up here and I completely spaced the name of the book. Oh my gosh. Anyways, we'll get back to that. I really can't remember it. Stacey Eldridge writes the book, and now for the life of me, I can't. Captivating, excuse me. It is Captivating by Stacey Eldridge. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. Woo. And so if you guys have not read that book, it is absolutely amazing. I highly recommend it. I read it at least twice a year because, man, that woman can just talk about a woman. Not talk about her, but she just talks about women in general and how much God loves women. Wow, we are the crown of creation, ladies. Relish in that. So she says that longing in the heart of a woman to share life together as a great adventure that comes straight from the heart of God, who also longs for this. He does not want to be an option in our lives. He does not want to be an appendage or a tag-along, neither does any woman. Hello? Yeah, I don't. God is essential. He wants us to need him desperately. Eve is essential. She has an irreplaceable role to play. And so you'll see that women are endowed with fierce devotion and an ability to suffer great hardships, a vision to make the world a better place. Kind of what Amanda was saying, that we don't need to shame people, right? We don't need to shame, we don't need to blame, but we need to uplift and love. We have a fierce devotion. We were put on this planet to make a difference. We are the only ones who can bear children. We are essential. We have an irreplaceable role. You have an irreplaceable role. Don't put anybody else's filter on that. We were given talents unique to us. We are one of a kind. When I said, look at your fingerprints earlier, I meant what I said. Embrace your uniqueness. Embrace your fingerprint God gave you. And this all actually stems from just a conversation I was listening to Air One on my drive home from work one day, and it was Lisa TerKeurst had popped up on to give a devotional on the radio show, and I was like, man, I am so like Lisa TerKeurst. She has the same struggles as me. I just don't know how she does it. And God was just like, just snap out of it. You're not Lisa. You are you. You have a story. You don't need to live by hers. Today you are you. That is truer than true. There's no one alive that is more youer than you. Anybody else? Embrace your uniqueness, ladies. Remember that you're made in God's image. We don't need none of this fluff. We don't need to put any of this fluff on anybody else. And that is all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for having me.